Welcome, Game Dev Adventures, to a special GDC side version of the Indie Game Lunch Hour. Today we're talking with Kristi Eckert about believing in yourself in the gaming industry's toughest era, a very important topic.
The Indie Game Lunch Hour.
Welcome all to the Indie Game Lunch Hour. In our live magical podcast, we give game developers the chance to hear stories of breaking in from industry experts, as well as directly ask them questions about their areas of expertise in the second half of each episode. As always, I'm your host, Willem Delventhal, the headmaster of the Indie Game Academy, and joining me today is Kristi Eckert. Kristi is the founder and lead narrative designer at Future Suit Games, which happens to be one of our 3 Foundry teams, the best of our students who are actually launching studios out of the Indie Game Academy. And she's here to talk about believing yourself in one of the toughest eras in the game industry. Welcome, Kristi. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. It is always a pleasure. What are you having for lunch today?
Oh, likewise, Willem. I'm going to be having sweet potato, apple, and carrot soup. It's one of my actually favorite things to make. I love to cook. And then right now I'm nursing 2 beverages. I have coffee here, but I also have a Wegmans branded sparkling water, lemon and lime, because I get thirsty when I drink coffee. So
Amazing. You're doing that a little bit of a double fisting.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I am, to begin this episode, I'm actually at GDC. It is GDC week as of the recording of this episode. And we were going to have Rick, our wonderful chief question asker on this podcast, to cover today's episode. But when I saw that it was Kristi, I had to come on and actually talk. So it is early morning for me, and I am post a Wizards of the Coast event where I got free Magic cards and played Magic until very late at night. But I'm here for
Nice.
you, Kristi. Let's rock and
Thank you.
roll.
I feel
Absolutely.
so honored. I really do.
It's always such a pleasure. So Kristi is a part of the Foundry podcast. One of the things I'm going to push a little bit harder this time for is for people to join the Future Suit Discord. So I don't know if you have that handy. I can grab it in a second, Kristi, if you don't.
I
We'll drop it
can
in chat.
I
Yes,
can grab it. Yeah, give me 1
absolutely.
second.
For those who are live in the podcast, we're going to drop it in the chat right now. Future Suit needs playtesters and just excited community members. So if you're willing to hop over to that Discord, that would be awesome. And to those who are listening after the fact, there will be a link to join their Discord down below.
This is our
Um,
link tree, and it has everything, including the Discord, if they wanna follow us on our other socials too.
Perfect. Thank you, Kristi. All right. So let's do the thing. Kristi, before anything else, this podcast always starts with an origin story. So tell us about how you got started in games.
Oh boy, Willem. Well, it all started on a hot summer day. No, I'm joking. I have a really, really eclectic path to finding myself here in game development, to eventually landing here in game development. But I guess before I start and explain sort of like my origin story, I guess I'll preface it by saying that I've always been a writer and I've always been a gamer.
Mhm.
Since I was a child, I've just had this love of words. I've had this like desire and need to express myself through the written word. But I've also have just always had this affinity for games as well, and games have really helped me through a lot of very difficult challenges in my life, including really difficult bouts of anxiety that I dealt with during college. So that's my little preface, but I guess I'll start by saying that I never intended to work in the gaming industry. In fact, I didn't think I ever would. When I first graduated high school, eons ago now, it feels like,
The third age of man.
yeah, seriously. Yeah, way back in 2006. So I'm dating myself. But when I graduated high school, I went to NYU and I was actually studying education. I was studying early childhood education and child psychology, and I was going to be a teacher. I even was student teaching down in Tribeca in New York City. And then I sort of had this moment where I was like, you know what? I don't, as much as I love, teaching, and I have such a reverence for teachers. My aunt is a teacher. I'm a substitute teacher for my day job right now. I just it doesn't satiate my soul in the way that I need my career to satiate my soul.
Hmm.
So I made a really tough decision, and I pivoted. I decided now I knew I couldn't get into Tisch because I had never acted a day in my life, but I pivoted to acting. And I
Hmm.
actually studied with an acting coach. Um, and I auditioned for the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts. And I studied dramatic performance there from 2009 to 2011. And then lived and worked in the city for a couple years, sort of like aimless. I loved acting, but I just never could get like a foothold in it. Worked some retail jobs, and then living in the city got really, really tough. So I decided to move back home to New Jersey, where I'm from, and where I live now. Uh, so I went back home to New Jersey, and I actually found myself in a career as a dog groomer. So I worked as a dog groomer for about a decade. And not only as a dog groomer, I also worked as a dog walker. I worked at an animal hospital for a little while. So yeah, I spent a lot of time. But I'll say again that, as much as I took away from dog grooming, as much as I appreciated, those lessons that I learned, as much as I still do it on the side too, it still didn't satiate my soul in the way that I really needed it to be satiated. So um, in 2019, I decided to go back and finish my bachelor's degree. So I went to Montclair State University here in New Jersey, and in 2021, I graduated with a degree, summa cum laude, with a bachelor's degree in public and professional writing. And from there, I launched a pretty successful career as a copywriter. I ended up being the managing editor of a lifestyle publication for a while. Um, and again, I got to this point where, I knew I loved writing at this point. I was doing it as a career. And I had another one of those like life-changing moments where I really sat down with myself and I said, what's missing? I'm writing, I love writing. What's missing? And I realized that in order for me to feel fulfilled and challenged, like as an individual, like I needed to always be challenged, right? So after a lot of thinking, a lot of researching, I was like, you know what? I think I want to put my two passions together. I think I want to put my two passions together. So I took so I was like, I know I love writing and I know I love video games. And how do I put these two things together? And so I actually did a bunch of research, and it was actually credit to my partner. He found the Indie Game Academy, and he said, you're thinking about getting into this. Why don't you check out this place? They're having this level one seminar, and I'm like, okay, let me try it out. So yeah, so I landed at the Indie Game Academy, and level one was just an amazingly formative experience for me, and it really, I think it was the spark that I needed to really solidify my decision that I wanted to pursue a career in game development, specifically in narrative design. And then 2 years later, I have worked on over, six indie game projects. I am now the co-founder of Future Suit Games. Yeah, and I kept doing the work. I kept putting in the work, and I knew it's what I wanted to do because it satiated my soul.
Wow.
And now I'm here.
That's wonderful. Wow, what a fantastic story. There's so much I feel like we could pull out of that. The to repeat the podcast's topic for today, it's believing in yourself in the gaming industry's toughest era. And for those who listen to the podcast regularly, you know that last week we had a community episode specifically about optimism, and about sort of the appropriate level of optimism, tools for building optimism, and the appropriate, like the positives and negatives of optimism. And I think something I've always really respected about you, Kristi, is that you trudge on. You are always willing to continue to put in the work, and you do a really good job of both like being human. I've seen some insecurity from you. I've seen some of your lower moments. But in addition to being human, there's always that realistic optimism. There's always that sense that I can keep doing this, and this is what I know I want to do. The sense of the quote that I wrote down is the "what's missing" quote. A lot of people in this room already know that they want to work in games, but maybe they're a little bit insecure about it, or they're feeling a little imposter syndrome, or maybe they're not quite sure yet. Some people in here are just here to make games, and maybe it's something that they want to do. But career transitioners are absolutely one of our bigger audiences, people who have been bouncing around and are a little bit uncertain about what they want to do. And I just want to use your story here, first of all, as a big, open, warm hug to everybody who's not quite sure about their career and thinks it might be games. Kristi here has given you permission to experiment and find what's missing.
Yeah. And that's actually one of my points that I was going to bring up today in regard to like believing in yourself. You have to give yourself the permission to pursue what you want to pursue. Nobody
Mhm.
else can give that to you, and you shouldn't look for it from anybody else, right? You can go to your friends for support, you can go to your family for support, but it's really up to you to give yourself the permission to invest in yourself. And I think that that's what keeps me going, because I continue to give myself the permission to invest, in myself, because if I didn't, then I was looking, I was not looking, I was watching a podcast the other day, and it was about an individual who just was very lost, and he had been laid off, and he had taken the advice of so many other different people, and this individual, he found himself in a position where he was like really just he just hit rock bottom, and he realized that all this time he was listening to everybody else's advice for how to live his life, but
Mm.
he wasn't listening to his own inner voice on how to live
Yeah.
his life. And so I think, a big part of believing in yourself is to allow yourself to listen to that internal voice.
So, such a wonderful sentiment. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I go to therapy, and I swear, like 70% of my therapy calls are about me going, I'm insecure, and somebody told me something, and I'm feeling insecure again, and can we talk about it?
Yeah.
It's normal. It's okay.
Yeah, 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 I have
Absolutely.
those moments all the time, all the time. And then,
Mhm.
in addition, I think that, we live in such a hyper connected society, and it's really easy to get lost in that like hyper connectedness, right? And it's
Yeah.
it's really easy to see other people's like successes and to judge yourself for other people's successes. It's really
Mhm.
easy to even see like inspiring messages like when you're scrolling through LinkedIn, and then feel some sense of like inadequacy even from those inspiring messages, because you're not really sure how to approach the advice that these inspiring messages are telling you,
Mhm.
so yeah, I get that, I totally get that. And imposter syndrome and self-doubt, it is so real, and I think that's why it's so hard to believe in oneself, especially in times of like such uncertainty and turmoil. But that makes it all the more important to try and to talk
Mhm.
about it.
I love that. There is a couple of things that I want to throw in here. So first of all, I had the privilege of having an older brother who already worked in games, who was able to, first of all, just even give me the knowledge that the game industry existed and show me some of the inner workings of the game industry when I was quite young. He is literally the person who showed me my first bits of code, playing around with Flash ActionScript and making Flash games. And then in addition, he was able to help me get my very first job at Lumosity. So I have worked in industry longer than most because I got lucky, basically. And as somebody who has worked in the industry now over 10 years, I can tell you that this never stops. You will always have the imposter syndrome biting at the back of your ear. You will always feel like you haven't quite made it. No matter how far you rise, this is just, I think, human nature. You tend to look forward to the next echelon of air quotes here success. And so there's always that like, man, I haven't quite made it yet. That feeling will follow you forever. So the reason that I say that is because it's very important to learn how to deal with it, and it's very important to just accept that that's okay. There's going to be a little bit of insecurity. Live a little bit more in the part of yourself that is excited and proud of what you have already accomplished, while also looking forward and being excited about pushing yourself to that next layer.
Mhm.
The other thing I'll throw in here is that it is fully okay for you to be insecure and to still march forward. Focusing on what you have already accomplished is really wonderful. And I had a great conversation last night at GDC about the nature of a startup success story. So here's one that maybe people didn't know because I didn't know myself. From Software, the creators of the Souls-like games, Dark Souls, um, Dark Souls 1, which was their first really big standout hit that has made them a monster in the industry today, was, I don't know the actual game number, somebody can look this up for us, but it was like their 30th game. They've been around since the 70s and have mostly not made anything noteworthy until Dark Souls. The number one predictor of startup success, the number one indicator that is consistent across all industries for that matter, is amount of time in the marketplace. So the longer you spend at it, the more likely you are to succeed. Go figure. So having that tenacity and having that ability to say, I'm not quite where I'm at yet, but it's okay. I'm going to keep going for it, is really, truly the number one thing that'll make you closer and closer to success. Just the straight up nature of statistics make you more and more likely to succeed the longer you stay doing it. So before we go any further, your topic here, Kristi, is about believing in yourself in the gaming industry's toughest era. So let's get your introduction to that. Let's get your thoughts on that. How do we believe in ourselves, Kristi?
Oh boy. I don't know. No. Yeah, like, well, I guess to start, it is a really tough time to be trying to work in the industry or even just working in the industry, right? Like even very well established, well-known studios are getting, shut down and revenue, has fallen for so many companies and even companies that are successful and do really successful games, they're getting shut down. And so, it's easy to look at all of this uncertainty and then coupled with um all of the uncertainty that's going on in the world in general, it's easy to look at that and to just despair, right? Fall into that despair and say, I'm not in it now. Maybe I don't have as much experience as all of these seniors that are now looking for work, and I should just stop. I should just give up. And if you're feeling that way, like you said, it's okay to feel that way. But I think it's also important to recognize that if you really feel that you belong in this industry, that you do belong right in this industry, and that you can continue to work towards that even in times of great uncertainty, even in times of seeming despair. Um, and so I think first, the first thing to do is to recognize that, right? And to, sit with yourself, let yourself process that. But like you said, then you have to trudge forward because a big part of success in this industry, even before there have been so many layoffs and so many jobs lost, has been pushing forward and not stopping and continuing to put yourself out there. Like you just said with FromSoft, with FromSoft, right?
Mhm.
They had to put out 30 plus games before they were even recognized. Um, and so with that, I'll also say that believing in yourself, right? It and I touched on this a little bit before. Believing in yourself isn't always comfortable, right? And you have to, I think, learn to live in the discomfort. And you have to learn to put yourself out there, especially in this industry, even before you might feel ready to put yourself out there. Because the more you put yourself out there, the more connections you're going to make. And, you know, the more you put yourself out there, the more comfortable you are going to get with putting yourself out there as well.
Mhm.
So that's one thing that I wanted to touch on. Also, I also wanted to touch on how the it's really important to try to remember and to hold on to the whimsy of your childhood, right? A lot of us want to work in this industry because we have loved games since we were young, right? And when you're young, you're not thinking about, oh, am I going to be able to, am I going to be able to get a job in this career? Am I going, what are the odds? What are the chances? When you're young, you just have a passion and you embrace that passion. And I think so often, too often, society tells us to, prescribe to this mentality that if you get to a certain point and you're not making it, then you should give up. Then you should just do a quote unquote normal job. So I think it's really important to hold on to the curiosity and the fearlessness, right, that you
Mhm.
have as a child, right, and to let that part of you that still exists inside of you, to let that out,
Hmm.
and embrace it, and embrace it fully, and whatever that means for you, right? It could mean different things for different people. I mean, for me, it's like I have a collection here of things that I love to look at, that remind me of who I was as a child and who I still am today, right? And that I'm proud to be that person, and that I am I'm not afraid to embrace that person. And yeah, so I think that's a big part of it too.
Hmm.
Stay true to yourself in times when it and everything else just seems, completely a mess, which,
Wow.
it kind of is right now. Um,
You don't say. How
um,
beautiful. I have that's you've given us a bunch of really good ones. I have three favorite statements from that I'll repeat to the audience. So here are my three favorite statements from that intro from Kristi about holding on to believing in yourself, holding on to the passion. Number one, nice and simple. We all know this one already, but it's always good to get a reminder. Keep pushing forward. Number two, learn to live in the discomfort. I think that's a really beautiful one and a really simple sentiment. You're not always going to have the successes. This year, right now, is really a struggle for a lot of companies. People are going through leaner times, and I guess that's been happening for a couple of years. But companies are persisting. And then number three, hold on to the whimsy of your childhood. I absolutely adore that. First of all, Kristi, what a wonderful statement. I can tell you're a writer. And I 100% believe in that sentiment. I talk about Sven Vink all the time, the creative director, or I think just director at Larian Studios, creators of Baldur's Gate 3. He's got a bunch of wonderful quotes. Go watch his acceptance speech at the Game Awards because it was hilarious and amazing and it will inspire you. And among the many things that he talks about how he feels like a lot of the bigger game companies have forgotten the whole reason that we make games, and that he had this awesome statement at the Game Awards where he says he can predict the winner of this award for the next 5 years, and that the winner will always be the person who is having a wonderful time making games, is pouring their passion into the game that they're creating, and is just excited to work on the project that they're working on. I think, especially as somebody who has worked on a number of different projects now, you will absolutely find yourself working on games where the team is not excited to work on the game, where it is a day job, and they're there because it's a day job. And that is largely a failure on leadership, but absolutely, we all contribute to that. Every team member contributes to that. And it's always a real shame. It is always really sad when I run into a game company where that's the case, because this is one of the very few industries where being consistently excited, well, I don't actually think that's true. This is one of the every industry where being consistently excited about the project that you're working on leads to a better product. At the end of the day, if the team is having a fun time working on the game will almost universally be a better game and will be better received, literally financially. So absolutely hold on to that whimsy. Remember why you're even here. And try to find, you're not always going to be super pumped about the project that you're working on. That's normal and okay. But try to find the parts of it that you are. Like, what are the little bits that you're like, oh, yeah, actually, this is really cool. Because otherwise, why are you even in games? Go do something that's more stable if you're not having a fun time.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's a good lesson, in life. You're not gonna, even when you're looking for a career, like I said before, that like satiates your soul. Not every day is gonna be perfect. There are days that you're gonna struggle and you're gonna be like, man, I don't feel like doing this today. That's just human nature. That's human
Mhm.
nature. And that's normal. And so, learning to recognize, when you're feeling those feelings, obviously, that's okay, but you also have to be honest with yourself and say, yeah, I love working in games, but I don't love it every single day. And that is literally just a symptom of being human. So
Yeah. The Indie Game Academy running this thing is such a blessing, but there are sure days where I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. It's normal. It's okay. I have another question for you here. So, do you have any techniques, practices, habits that help you keep this belief in yourself?
Yeah, self-reflection is a big one.
Hmm.
You have to take the time to sit with yourself and to really, reflect on, where you've been, where you are, where you wanna be. There's like I touched on it before when I was kind of giving my origin story.
Hmm.
There were points that I really sat with myself and really had to think, what is going to make me happy. And then in terms of like working in games, think about, if you're already in or you're aspiring to be working in games, think about what is it about games that makes you want to work in this field? Like what makes you tick? What excites you? What ignites that cognitive spark, or that guttural spark, that guttural desire, to work in the industry. What who are your idols and why? These are all things that you could think about, and then also think about your life experiences, right? Because where we've been informs who we are today. I am the writer that I am today because of what I've been through in my life. I can speak to things and bring value to the industry that other people can't, because I've had those unique experiences that are solely mine. And expressing that through interactive storytelling, expressing that through the medium of gaming, is something that I truly love about it. So what is that for you? And I think that's something very, very important to think about. Um, and yeah, and I said take the time to be present. Also, another big thing that I think we all forget to do is to nurture your physical, your social, and your mental health.
Yeah.
Um, I think that we sometimes forget that there is three parts to it, right? We have because a lot of people think, it's important to nourish my physical health. I have to eat well, I have to exercise, for energy and for to keep my body healthy. A lot of people are aware of mental health, right? You have to, recognize your emotions, recognize what you're feeling, speak to trusted to people to help you through difficulties that you face, right? But I think that we forget that as humans, we're whether we're introverts or extroverts or a mix of both, we're still very social beings, right? And we crave that social interaction. And I think a big part of believing in yourself is to really nurture your whole self,
Hmm.
and to make sure that you're taking care of every piece, and every piece could mean something different to anybody. Like for me, nurturing my physical health and my mental health usually means going out for a run. And
Hmm.
that way it allows me to, exercise, keep my body strong and healthy, but it also allows my mind to decompress, to
Hmm.
unwind, because I can get lost, in the scenery around me, and I could just be. And
Yeah.
and um and I think that's something really important. I think finding what works for you
Hmm.
is going to help you find a way to kind of get to the point where you can really trust yourself. Um
Love that.
and yeah, and then I think I think discipline is really, really important. You
Hmm.
have to have you have to have the you have to have a really, really strong internal discipline to work in this industry, especially when you're trying to break in, because a lot of the work that you're doing has to be self-motivated. Because it's very hard to get that initial professional experience, right? And so you have to self-motivate. You have to, in order to create like a body of work, in order to, proof of concept, hey, I want to do this, but guess what? I can do it because here's what I've already done. Um, and so that discipline for me, I think a lot of it, while a lot of it is innate, I think a lot of it comes from my history with sports, right? I talked about being a runner just before, but I grew up, I was also a soccer player. I played soccer for the vast majority of my life. I was actually the captain of my varsity soccer team in high school. And so, there is a discipline there. Sports are tough. You have to train. you have to you have to show up, and you have to keep showing up, even when it's raining outside, even when you don't really feel as well as you could, and you have to be there for your teammates. In team sports, you have to be there for your teammates, you have to be a team player. So showing up, doing the work, finding that internal discipline. Running is hard, right? And you're always going to get, um no matter how seasoned a runner you are, you're always going to get to that point, that distance where you're feeling it. And you got to get yourself over that hump,
Mm-hmm.
and finding that, like, in terms of disciplining yourself and self motivating yourself. When you reach that point where you're like, I can't do it anymore, I can't go further, you got to find that, like, internal fire, that to it, so to just keep pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's the third thing that I would recommend, right? So self reflect, take care of your mental, your physical, and your social health, and also find discipline, embrace discipline, and find your self motivation.
Amazing. Those are all really good tips. Remember your Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's really hard to care about any kind of emotion, care about any kind of like a big push in your life if you aren't well slept, if you aren't taking care of your body, if you aren't eating well. I know everybody says this, and so because everybody says this, it's easy to kind of ignore it, but it's really 100% true. Something I like to advocate for is think about quality of time and quality of work hours. So if you are underslept, the quality of those hours goes down dramatically, meaning even if you're putting in 10 hours of work, the 10 hours count more like 5 hours of well-rested work. I will often take naps, go on jogs, go to the gym. The gym is my absolutely my like recovery place. Even though it uses up some of my work hours, even though it uses up some of the time where I might be doing something important or productive, the quality of the remaining hours goes up dramatically, and I tend to wind up getting a lot more done. So take care of yourself and your base fundamentals. I love the concept of discipline. Motivation is wonderful. We all seek that high, but ultimately it will fail you. So having the ability to do at least a minimal base level of work every single day, or at least every day that you aren't resting, which is rest too, is extremely valuable. I've lately been trying a really simple model where every morning there's a 3 hour block where I don't have meetings and it's just work time. And then the rest of the day is a little bit more of a shit show. But that 3 hours happens. And that's been pretty helpful for me so far. And yeah, absolutely. Make sure you are also just looking internally, and maybe don't forget your game design, is maybe what I would extend upon that. As game designers, we're studying human motivation. We're studying how to get somebody to do something and how to get somebody engaged, excited about something, and looking inwards at yourself as a potential player of the game of your life is a wonderful way to think about, yeah, getting yourself engaged and getting yourself interested and connected to what you're actually working on. I have one last question, then we're going to do a question of the day. When you are at your lowest, when the belief has dropped to the negative levels, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't do it today. What is your like? How do you pull yourself back out of that space? Is it going on a jog, as you mentioned? Is it something else?
Yeah, and this happens to me kind of often, believe it or not. Well, one, I allow myself to feel
Mhm.
those emotions, right? I will allow myself to break down, to cry, to really feel that. I'll pull my partner aside, and I'll talk to him, and kind of tell him what I'm feeling. Uh, I allow myself to live through those emotions so I can move on from them. So yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes it means crying it out. Sometimes it means going for a run. Sometimes it means playing a game, playing a video game. Sometimes I need that mental distraction. Um, and yeah, I would say those are really my go-to strategies. And then remembering that, like, that inner desire, right? To succeed in this industry, to succeed as a narrative designer. Um, and remembering my responsibility to, not only to my colleagues, but to myself.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, a lot of it is very introspective. Um, I have to Yeah, I'm a very emotional person. I don't know if you can tell I'm very rooted
I've never thought that about you, Christy.
in um so yeah, do something that you love, allow yourself to feel what you're feeling,
Mhm.
and then recognize when you're ready to come back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. I think absolutely allowing yourself to feel is good. I think it's really important to give yourself actually that space to just like not hold it together. To just allow yourself to be air quotes here broken. You're not broken, but you know what I mean. Allow yourself to just fall apart a little bit because that is recovery, and it's not going to feel good. There's gonna be that voice that's like judging you some of the time. You're going to be a little bit depressed some of the time. But it is a sort of form of recovery that I don't think we recognize as much as we should. It's similar to just sleeping or something. Allowing yourself to not have your shit together for a little while is a really wonderful break. And then not too long, don't do it too long. Don't wallow in it because it is also easy to get trapped there. Um, like give yourself a couple of days, a couple of weeks, whatever you really need in that moment, and then do some of those things that you love. Remember why you love things, and actually, a tip that has meant a lot to me for a while: find those things that tend to revitalize you, that give you major doses of energy, and hit up one of those like maybe every 6 months or every 3 months. I'm at GDC right now. GDC is unfortunately cost prohibitive, but there are a lot of ways to get free tickets. So maybe consider things like this in the future. Find some local events that are similar, or whatever does work for you and get you excited. Because every time I leave GDC, I am absolutely re-energized, revitalized. I have 100 new ideas and a bunch of cool new people to talk with, and I leave just pumped up and ready to get out of the funk. So figure out what that is for you. It doesn't need to be the big dramatic ones. Just a jog is a wonderful way to be like, oh yeah, life's not actually that bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
I think maybe. Oh,
Question of the day.
it's the time for the question of the day. I'm going to give out 3 House Cup points as we prepare to have community questions. Here is my question for y'all. First person to put it in the chat will get their 3 House Cup points. If you are listening, is the answer crying, says Petunia. If you are listening, speak the answer out loud for me to help you remember one of Christy's most important points. So earlier, Kristi gave us 3 mindset shifts, 3 quotes on how to be a little bit better about believing in yourself. What is one of those 3 things Kristi told us to do? Type it out in chat for us. While we are trying to answer that question, I'm going to pull Rick up onto the stage to begin our community questions of the day. Listen to the Arthur theme song. Not quite at Kevin, but it's a great guess. Kristi gave us 3 things to do. What are one of those 3 things? All right, Rick, do you want to ask your first question while people ponder the question of the day?
Yeah, sure. So you were talking about, this feeling of imposter syndrome and how things can be, just like where am I actually doing this? Can I do it? Can you talk about moments that you've had where you've had some success and that temporarily dispelled your sense of imposter syndrome? We all know it comes back, but like when did you feel like, oh, maybe I am good at this?
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna bring up Strange New Tides. I Willem asked me to be the lead narrative person on that, and I was like, "Holy cow, I don't know if I could do this. Am I ready for this?" And this is kind of like what I talked about, like living in the discomfort, right? So if I didn't say yes, then I would have never have it, I would have never have known whether I could do that or not, right? I also would have never have grown as a narrative designer because even if I, what wasn't successful or was less successful, I would still have experienced some growth in having led a narrative design specific team. So, while I had, led myself as the narrative designer before on projects, so I've been my sole leader. Leading that team was something that I had a lot of self doubt about. Man, I think I talked my partner's ear off on that one. I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I don't know if I could do this. But you know what? I did it. I did it. And I had a blast doing it. And I realized, wow, maybe I am a good leader. Um, so that was definitely a moment of self-doubt
Hmm.
that I had.
Rick, do you
Yeah,
actually
that
want to just roll into that second question then? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what I took away from your answer there is you experienced that sense of that you can do this when you stepped into something that you weren't sure that you could do, and you took on that challenge. That's
Yeah, yeah,
that
absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
awesome. I like to refer to that as or I have a quote where you must leave your comfort zone in order to expand it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
Um, and then, yeah, did you have a second question?
Yes. It actually was about Strange New Tides because I'm familiar with your work on that, and you did really
Okay.
well. Like Strange New Tides, the one of the big standout elements of that was the narrative and the depth of it and how much content there was. Like it was really impressive. Can you talk about tackling that challenge? How you set the goals and how you handled coordinating the squad, like from a narrative perspective?
Yeah, so I did a lot of the high level brainstorming, and I came up with two different versions of how the narrative arc could play out, and I actually pitched that to Willem, and and we decided on one. So once we had that high level narrative arc, I actually built out a flowchart for how it could flow, like the framework of the narrative, and then I went back to my team and I said, hey everyone, this is kind of like the narrative that we're aiming for. This is how I think that it's going to flow best with the game design. This is how I think that the narrative is going to best be married to the game design mechanics. Um, and then what do you think? Right. So I
Mhm.
had them come to me and say, okay, yeah, I think we could do this. I think we could do this. I think we could do this. And then I came back with my suggestions as well, and then from there, what I built out was sort of like different like brainstorming sections in Miro where we all went in and we all wrote our ideas. How could we make the plot better? How do we communicate living or being on what was the theme? I can't even remember now. Living uncomfortably or being uncomfortable in a new
It was
place and then
small
finding home or
animals.
finding friendship.
Mhm.
So, I asked them, what does that mean to you? And, how can we bring that out in this story with maybe the limited text that we're gonna have, right? And we decided that the best way to do it with the framework that we had developed was through barks. And so I said, all right, well, I want us to all own a piece of this. So I allowed them to create their own NPCs and kind of like create those personalities and then write those character barks that in a way that was true to those characters that they created. So it was a combination of me kind of like defining the high level framework and then giving them the autonomy to kind of make the piece that they were owning their own.
Hmm.
Awesome. I got three things out of that. The first was that you talked with other teams and figured out how can you intertwine the narrative to have a cohesive experience with the narrative. Then you also created a lot of strong visual documentation and clearly explained the plan. And then you allowed the other developers to own their piece and fully take responsibility for it.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Yeah, it was great.
Thanks.
It
Oh,
was
thanks.
great. I love still to this day that first character. What is the very first character's name? The like little blue guy.
No.
The rich, no, the rich one who's in a mansion at the beginning
Oh,
of Strange New
Amaretta,
Tides.
Amaretta.
Amaretta is still so memorable, and to this day, one of my favorite moments from that experience was watching my dad play Strange New Tides for the first time and proclaiming out loud "F you, Amaretta" the first time that he talked with her. Fantastic. I think that was a great lesson in basically creative management. You had an overall direction, an overall actual arc to how the game should play out and how it should feel over time. And then you handed off creative control as much as possible to the team. So what that allowed is, I think, two things, especially in Strange New Tides. For those who are curious, Strange New Tides was one of our Mega Jam games, so it was built in sort of 72 hours, but ultimately we kept polishing it a little bit after the fact, and it is now on Steam. You can go check it out for free. One of the things that I think worked really well with that game is that the each NPC feels unique, but they do overall follow an arc where they warm up to you. And the theme that we went for was the discomfort of a strange new place, only to eventually make it home. So it really like nailed that vibe. Amaretta is a huge jerk to you for no reason the first time you talk to her, and slowly she warms up to you, and she's like, "Yeah, all right, I guess you're okay." And every character has that same arc, but also has a very unique personality. And I think that was just a triumph of a little bit of narrative leadership.
Thanks.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Rick. I have a question for Misha. Misha, I'm not sure if you wanted to get on stage, so I'm going to read it for you here. Misha asks, how do you keep developer friends motivated on the end goal when you are trying to obtain funding and unknowns? I think I like that first part especially. How do you keep your fellow developers motivated?
I think a lot of it comes down to communication, right? I think that we're all going to have moments where we're just not feeling it, like we were talking about before. And, we're going to have moments of self-doubt because we're human, and we're going to have moments where we're not going to believe in ourselves and, question whether all of this work that we're putting in has been worth it, or if it's going to amount to anything. So I think being honest with the people that you're working with is a big part of it, like being honest with them as to where you're at, and then finding a solution to work through it together. I think that's a big part of team motivation. And yeah, I think I would say that that's probably foremost at the forefront of what should be kind of yeah, prioritized.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Keeping the team management is a whole nother aspect, especially of the startup life, that you may not realize is going to be a huge part of your life. The Mega Jam actually was fantastic practice for that. How much of our time was spent just talking to people, Kristi, and not actually contributing to the project in a production way, in an actual like work way. How much did we just spend talking to folks?
Yeah, a lot, right? Like,
Hmm.
and like trying to like define out like a plan, just trying to have like by communicating with others. And I think you actually spoke about this before, Willem, about how you can be communicating with somebody effectively and think that you're getting across exactly what you want to get across, but
Hmm.
maybe that person is interpreting it in a completely different way. So later down the line, there's going to be, another follow-up conversation to then clarify what needs to be clarified. So yeah, a lot of it is really just like talking and like bouncing back and forth and making sure, like, okay, you understand this, and this is how I understand it, and this is how you understand it. So yeah, yeah.
Love that. Awesome. All right. For our final question of the day, we have Wendy up on stage. Oh, and for the question of the day, Wendy did get it, by the way. Y'all didn't answer. Good job, Wendy. I'm assuming those
Hey,
points are going to Cleric.
I've changed now because of level 3. I will always,
Oh,
somebody else is that way too. They're a cleric at heart, but
yes.
now I'm ranger, so I've got to give it to ranger.
Oh,
Ranger.
I
All
love
right. All right.
I
So
think
Wendy said, "Keep pushing," and that's the very first one that Kristi gave us towards the beginning of the episode. Keep pushing forward. Kristi also gave us "Learn to live in the discomfort," super valuable, and then finally, "Hold on to the whimsy of your childhood," which is my personal favorite. That's why we're in games. All right. Do you want to ask your final question, Wendy?
Sure. And hi, Kristi. Good to see you again.
hi, Wendy. Yeah, great to see you too.
It's been a while since a level 1, and it was fantastic. It was so great to have you there. Okay, so as I was hearing you talk, and you both were keeping me company while I was driving home, and that's partly why I didn't write down the questions. I was so happy I remembered at least one of them. I'm wondering if other people have this experience. Like, I like to handle things on my own, but sometimes we'll need others. And I'm wondering if other people sometimes live in that space too. So I'd love to hear what you have to say about believing in yourself and helping others do that, like meaningfully, not just like, hey, try hard and blah, 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 something, fit all the good words. Like, how do you meaningfully support people and help them believe in themselves?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is asking, what they need, right? It's like I think again it comes down to communication. Truly asking like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And being genuine about that. And I had so when I was a managing editor, I had an editor underneath me, and we became really good friends. But when she first came on. She came on as a contributing writer, and she had a lot of self-doubt. She had a lot of self-doubt in her capabilities, but she had a lot of ambition as well. And we got to talking one day, and she was kind of like telling me that she wasn't sure if she really belonged being a writer because all she had was a high school diploma. And so I heard that and I said, and I told her, you are absolutely talented. You are absolutely skilled. A degree does not define you. And, I continue to support her, in various ways, as her managing editor, I gave her feedback. And, she continued to grow, right, as a writer. And she was eventually promoted to editor underneath me. And so I think, a big part of like supporting and uplifting others is meeting them where they're at, and then being genuine with them, but also being their champion too. Recognizing that ambition, and pushing them forward. Pushing them into the discomfort sometimes gently. um, so I was the one who actually advocated for her promotion from writer to editor. And so yeah, like supporting them in a professional capacity if you can, if you really believe in them and you see that they have the talent and the desire to move forward. If you have the ability to propel their career forward, do so. And then also, yeah, communicating with them, being a genuine person. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Thank you. I think that rather than just reacting, even though if it's a place coming from a place of wanting to help, like, oh, you should try this, so like speaking at 100 miles an hour like I do could be a little bit overwhelming or a lot overwhelming, and asking them what they need and then giving them time to respond and follow up if needed is a much better approach. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Of course.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, Wendy, for that last question. It's time for us to start wrapping up. So we've got two things to do as always, Kristi. First things first, what is a piece of homework that you can assign our listeners that they can do in the next week? It'll take them about an hour to practice some of what you talked about here today.
Okay, I have sort of a fun one, or I think it could be fun. So I talked a lot about self-reflection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I really think that that's super important to do. So I actually am going to ask everybody to do a little bit of self-reflection. Ask yourself, what are you most proud of? And really, what about game development satiates your soul? And then I'd like you to express it in any creative way that you want. Um, and a lot of the times, I'm a writer, right? So a lot of times I will write something. So actually, in the advent of putting myself into the discomfort, living in the discomfort, actually I'm going to share a poem that I wrote after a little bit of self-reflection. And I did share this already on LinkedIn, but it was difficult to kind of like show this very vulnerable side of myself. So I'll read it for you to kind of like get everybody started. Dawn. It was lovely. It is lovely, in fact. Eyes closed, waiting. And then sunlight. Vibrant. Very vibrant. Then, of course, inevitably, there is dark. Deep, powering darkness. Oh, so very dark. And time passes. Clocks turn. The sun rises again. Conquering darkness. Mobius in their existence, cyclic, turning, eternal, in fact. The dark never ceases, but the light always comes. So, yeah, remember, believing in yourself is about finding your own unique light.
Thank you so much for sharing that, for giving us a little bit of vulnerability. Awesome. All right. That's a nice, beautiful, simple, straightforward homework assignment. So nobody has justification for not doing it. I want to see it. So do a little bit of self-reflection. Ask yourself what it is that even has you here, that has you in the game industry, that makes you want to work in games. And then once you've written that, once you've figured out what that is, do some sort of creative pursuit, writing a poem, drawing a picture, making a game that helps you express that why. I love that. All right, before we say goodbye, Kristi, do you have any last words of wisdom or anything you would like to plug here at the end of the episode?
Oh, I just thank you so much for everybody for being here. I had a blast. Thank you, Willem, for for waking up so early on the West Coast during GDC. And I hope that the rest of your time at GDC is absolutely amazing. And then I just hope that everybody keeps trudging through, keep pushing.
Amazing. Keep pushing, keep trudging through. I am going to plug things for you. So, those who are in the Discord live, please join the Future Suit Games Discord. They are in need of playtesters. They are on a year-long journey to launch a game next March. And they need playtesters. Be a part of their journey. Super easy. You can contribute to the indie sphere. Indies need your help. It is time for the indie revolution. So those who are listening, there will be a link to join Kristi's Discord down below. We are giving away some free classes who join the Foundry Discord. The Foundry team Discords, not our Discord. So check it out down below. You might win some free classes, and Kristi can just use your help. Help us, Obi-Wan. You are our only hope. Thank you, Kristi, for being here. This has been an absolutely wonderful episode. It is always a pleasure to chat with you.
Likewise. Thanks, Willem.
Of course. We'll see everybody again soon. And as always, we are here every single Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Every Wednesday. I said that already. So come by and join us for the next one and ask your own questions live. We'll see you again then soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.